Sabrina came out in 1995 and is directed by Sydney Pollack and stars Harrison Ford, Julia Ormond, and Greg Kinnear. Really looking forward to talking about this first-time watch, so let's start talking about it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Almost Sideways, a place for movie conversations. My name is Adam, and today's conversation is going to be about my first-time watch of Sabrina. But before we get there, make sure you guys, if you are enjoying movie conversations like this, make sure you guys hop in the comment section and join the conversation down there. And think about sharing, and subscribing this video and start talking about all things movies along with us. We would love to have you join those conversations. All right, Sydney Pollack's Sabrina did come out in 1995, and it's a Harrison Ford movie. And so I've been doing this Harrison Ford filmography journey, and I've been watching all his movies and talking about him here on the podcast and here on YouTube as well. And this is another entry in that Ford Explorer review series. I'm really excited to dive into this one because this is one that I've never seen before, but I have seen the case countless numbers of times. I think you can look right above my left shoulder there, and you can see the poster. It's a pretty iconic image that I have seen a number of times, but just never put it into the Blu-ray player or even rented it on Prime. And this film is based off the adaptation that Billy Wilder did in 1954. This is based off a stage play of the same name called Sabrina. And I want to talk about the Billy Wilder film for a second. I never watched that original film. However, I'm a huge fan of Billy Wilder, and I think that's the original one is the one I probably should watch going forward because, like I said, being a fan of Billy Wilder, two of my favorite films of all time are The Apartment and Sunset Boulevard. Really love those movies. And Some Like It Hot is also a really fun, entertaining one that people do love as well. So I think the original Sabrina would be a kind of must-watch at this point. So if you haven't seen the film does follow a young lady named Sabrina Fairchild, who is played by Julia Ormond, and she's the daughter of a chauffeur who drives for this kind of wealthier family, the Larbys, and their sons, Linus, who is played by Harrison Ford, and David, who is played by Greg Kinnear. They're next door neighbors to these families, and Sabrina has a young attraction to their son David, again played by Greg Kinnear, and kind of is infatuated with him. However, she is given an opportunity to go to Paris, and she learns a lot about herself and kind of that relationship, and definitely learns a lot. Comes back to the States, back home, and that love and affection is still for David. However, he's getting married to somebody new, and so Linus has to step up and kind of move her along into other things, and may or may not wind up having affections of his own for the young Sabrina. Now, I didn't know too much about this movie going into it, but I did know it was PG, which is kind of something we don't see. It's a rarity nowadays. You don't see that much. And Sydney Pollack being a recognizable actor/director, and his big movies I've seen that he's directed was Tootsie, was pretty much the only one I had seen at this point, but I've heard that he's directed The Firm and Three Doors to the Condor, and The Swimmer, some of his most recognizable work, but he's also appeared in movies like Death Becomes Her, and then Michael Clayton, and even Eyes Wide Shut, and Tootsie, rightfully so as well. So he's popped up in a lot of movies. So being one of my very early works of Sydney Pollack that I haven't seen too much of his directed movies, I thought this movie was really paced really well, and I thought that his direction was really good. This film doesn't have super flashy direction, but it tells a really good story, paced very well, and tells a very entertaining love triangle in a very sweet way. And I didn't know necessarily what to expect going into it, and so when they started doing those romantic beats, I'm like, I don't know how well this is going to play necessarily for me, but it played really well, gotta say. And the rare crossover of Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear, which is also interesting, but it's kind of reversed. Harrison Ford is not the main love attraction of the young Sabrina here. It is Greg Kinnear's David character, and David is definitely a playboy in this movie. He's would be considered a stick man on our podcast, and he has a new relationship every single week, and he doesn't go out on multiple dates with these people, so his relationship are quick and quick infatuations, and then they're kind of one and done deals in the movie. That's how the movie portrays it. But Sabrina is infatuated, kind of knows the normal routine that David does have with these different women, because observing them in a tree and next door, it kind of sees every single beat that David does with these women, but still is super infatuated with him. And even when she goes to Paris, isn't super infatuated, even though she meets somebody over in Paris as well, but never gives him really a chance because she's still kind of infatuated with him. And it's kind of funny that she gets a haircut and then immediately becomes David's main source of attraction when she comes back to the States, back home. It's a very fun scene. I think I will drop a clip of that on YouTube as well. So make sure you guys check the clip out as well. I'll probably link it down in the show notes so you guys can check it out as well. But it's a fun scene when she first comes back over and she catches his eye, and even though he's engaged and they're having a wedding party and stuff like that too, it's kind of interesting how that happens. Harrison Ford does a really good job as his older brother Linus. He is in control of their family's company, and he is like the main head boss of this company along with his mother. And David has an office at his office building, but he never uses his own office. He doesn't even know where the building's at because he never shows up there. But Harrison Ford does take a lead role here, and originally he's not like the stickman character, even though he does, spoiler, does get the girl at the end. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time for him to get there. Yeah, I do like how he is the older brother who has the more mature job, and he's definitely more, I guess, in a sense, smarter, not like kind of infatuated with different people, but he is strictly into his work. But he does know and knows bits and pieces of information for the next door neighbor, Sabrina. So I thought that was cool. And David doesn't even recognize her because things are skin deep with him, it seems. And seeing these three characters interact with one another it's fun. There's some fun moments there. There is a ridiculous point where Greg Kinnear sits on some wine glasses that he has in his back pocket and has a bunch of cuts on his ass. And there's a whole scene where he's like, yeah, he sat down on some glasses and he's in a lot of pain. We're going to up his dosage while I go and swoop in and maybe kind of take his Sabrina away so that they're not thinking about it. The whole plot of this film is basically that Greg Kinnear is now engaged to a lady who is daughter of this other company that Harrison Ford's company is going to try to kind of merge with and kind of take up. And there's a lot of fun sequences where apparently that other tech company has made a TV that's like, you can't destroy it, you can't break it, you can't shoot it with like a BB gun and it will never break and stuff like that. So there's like super technologies. There's scenes where they're hitting this TV with like a crowbar. Really funny comedic stuff there. So there's like a business merger coming, but there's also like a love triangle scenes too. Really cool. Like this is like a fun photographer movie. If you're like a photographer, there's a lot of fun images there with Paris, and there's a lot of fun little moments here. And again, I didn't know what I was walking into quite frankly when I first started the movie. I just knew that this was a 95 movie. It's just like a Harrison Ford movie, so I gotta watch it. And it pleasantly was a really great watch. I enjoyed the chemistry of all three of the main actors here. There's a lot of really some fun humor there. Sydney Pollack did a really great job telling this story here. And Julie Ormond really leads this movie as the lead actress of Sabrina, and she kind of has the short end of the stick here because she is doing the Aubrey Hepburn character in the original 1954 film. And I hadn't really seen too much of Julia Ormond, and I feel like she's a character like where it happened to her, because she had this amazing performance in the Sabrina film and really hasn't done too much since. Her letterbox does say her biggest projects at this point were The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Inland Empire, Legends of the Fall, and Che Part 1. And then My Week with Marilyn. So there's been some really good projects that she's been in, but nothing that she's like kind of led the way in since Sabrina, really. I haven't seen Inland Empire, so I could be wrong with that one. But Julie Ormond is an actress that definitely could have done a lot more after this performance here, and I think she really did a good job leading this cast. This movie did get nominated for a couple Oscars as well, so it knocks off an Oscar watch for me too. So I really enjoyed it. Had a pleasant surprise with Sabrina, and I'm pretty high on this movie. I'm like 3.5 out of 4 stars for Sabrina. I really have no issues with the movie. I thought it was paced really well, told a really sweet story, and the main 3 actors were likable to a point, even though they were, they're doing their own thing. There's not like Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear basically playing Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear, and Kinnear's character completely takes like a 90-degree turn near the end of the movie. in a very convenient way that helps the film get to the closing act, and has this grand gesture where Harrison Ford's able to fly to Paris much later after Sabrina has already flown out there, and gets to the same spot at the same time. There's a really fun conversation with John Wood, who plays Sabrina's father in this movie, and with Harrison Ford and John Wood, who's the chauffeur character in Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear's family, and basically said, "I want to make Sabrina happy. I want to be able to take care of her," and it's the dad gave the blessing to him too. So it's really sweet, little touching moments like that near the end of the movie that really makes this film kind of adorable in a way. I do have this movie placed at number 10 currently on my Harrison Ford ranking, right between number 9 pick Patriot Games and number 11 American Graffiti. I thoroughly enjoyed Sabrina, a lot more than I thought I was, and it was a pleasant surprise. So, did you guys see Sabrina back in the theaters, or is this one of your favorites? Let me know in the comments section down below what you guys thought of this film, and make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube if you love talking about all things movies with me and the other guys on the podcast. Make sure you guys do so we would love to have you part of those conversations. Until next time, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. My name is Adam, and I will see you in the next video.